That's quite interesting.
What?
Hello, you guys. Welcome to Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson. We're going to have a pretty in depth conversation about what the R. Kelly verdict really means for the norm, criteria, culture in America. And we're also going to talk about some alternative lifestyle community information as we delve into the specific charges that R. Kelly was found to be guilty of in this astonishing verdict, right? And we're going to talk about. I feel like I've exhausted the topic about how it is that this relates to very slick, avoiding or creating a loophole in the double jeopardy clause. Like there's just so much. So we are going to have that conversation. We're going to jump right into it after you guys take a look at this show intro. Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson. I am your host, Dr. Jefferson. Welcome, Mr. Brooks. How are you? I hope that you guys come to this conversation with a very open mind and ready to have this conversation without feeling very triggered. If you are a person who is typically emotionally triggered about issues around sex trafficking and sexual abuse and sexual assault, and those are difficult conversations for you to even hear, then I suggest you go ahead and you click off, and maybe click back in about an hour or so where we'll be delving into a very interesting relationship topic. Okay. So I will say that today we're going to be having a conversation about the R. Kelly trial outcome and additional charges and things that he still has pending. And we're going to talk in depth about the specific charges that he was convicted of and, just things like that. And I want to talk about what that means for our culture. Okay, is that all right? Like, I'm hoping that that's okay. Accountability conversations are conversations where we delve into those difficult conversations where accountability needs to be taking place around issues that affect directly or indirectly the Black and melanated community in America and abroad. Life Discussions with Dr. Jefferson is an accountability conversation platform. So that's what we do here. We have those conversations. And I try to delve into some of those conversations, the vast majority of these conversations, with a very unbiased lens, even though it may seem as if I have an opinion about all of these things. I really don't. I have a personal interest because I care about where we're going as a culture, and how that outcome shapes up to be beneficial for our children and, of course, us as we move into old age and die off. You're going to be doing it by yourself. Because this one right here, not aging, not doing that. So we're going to jump right into this. And let me go here. Who is Robert Kelly? Right. He is a guy who, can y'all hear the music in the background? Seems like you're ready. So we've all listened to something that R. Kelly has created. We have all listened to some music that he has directly created or some music that has been influenced by the man. He's an amazing artist. However, his personhood has been 100% under attack for, I want to say, the last 30 years. That's crazy. 30 years. So it took 30 years for a jury to find him guilty of something sexually misconduct related. I found that to be very interesting. I found it to be very interesting that here it is, we're charging a guy with sexual misconduct in a society where that said sexual misconduct can look a little bit different. Okay. Now versus then. Okay. So R. Kelly is 54 years old. Okay. I think I remember having a conversation with you guys about Kevin Samuel's preference in dating women who are in their 20s. And some of those women, that's not even the dynamic between, if people want to make the argument between the R. Kelly and Aaliyah, we're talking about 27 and 15, right? He was 27 then, and she was 15. That's less of an age gap than my grandparents' parents. So, I don't know how y'all feel about that, but personally, I think that the age gap is never the issue. I think the maturation level has a lot to do with everything. So when we have these conversations, I want you guys to travel back with me and look at what it is that we're saying when we say that this guy is predatory. He's a predator. He went after these women and he had this sex trafficking ring and all of these things. When we say this kind of stuff, hold on.
I didn't mean to say let me go.
What?
Did you read it?
No, I'm on a show.
That's important.
That's my son.
Oh wait.
Hand it to him. So hand it to Kale. Okay. But yeah. So my son just does that. He's like seriously ADHD.
Oh, someone found Jack.
I know. But so where was I?
Call them, but
Oh, He made me lose my frame of thought. Okay, I was on the part where we're navigating the conversation about Aaliyah and R. Kelly's relationship and the age differential between the two of them. So I want to have a conversation about how we look at that and how we look at what charges he's been brought up on and what charges he's been convicted on, and the way that we look at the charges that he's been convicted on, and the way that we view predatory behavior. Okay. R. Kelly has recently, in recent years, during um, more than one interview, but I remember specifically the interview with Gayle King. Is her name Gayle King? Oprah's friend, where he talked about his past trauma, past sexual trauma, and that sort of thing. Um, Absolutely terrible for somebody to go through that. And I often talk about the effects of trauma on the psyche, the way that we view the world around us, and the way that we interact with the people in the world around us. Oftentimes, explanations of what's going on with people is, those explanations are oftentimes mistaken as excuses, right? And that's not what we're doing. We're not making excuses for the behaviors. We're not excusing what happened. But what we are doing is having the conversation that expands our understanding of what really went on behind the scenes and in the intrapsyche of a person who would commit these particular crimes that have been brought up against them, and then now he's been found guilty of. So that's the reason that the crime title is associated with that. So I feel like we have to be asking some larger questions. So if we just went on the Aaliyah, right, situation. Aaliyah was 15, okay, at this time. Can anybody take me back to a song that Aaliyah released during that time where she married R. Kelly? I think Aaliyah married R. Kelly. What was that, 94, 95? So let me see. I'm trying to tell people how dangerous what he was convicted of is for our people. Right, right. But Aaliyah was releasing music at that time that was sexually explicit in nature, correct?
Yeah.
Her videos, her dress, her physical appearance, all of these things were explicit in nature. All of these things were sexualized in nature. The young ladies who were going to the R. Kelly concerts, because we got to think about this, right? I want you guys to just think, do a little bit of personal reflection. If R. Kelly, let's say if R. Kelly is this sexual predator, how is it that this sexual predator would be able to prey on his prey? He would have to have access to them, right? So if parents in the Black community are allowing their daughters at these ages that we're now saying in the here and now, those ages were inappropriate for him to invite them backstage, do whatever it is he was doing with them, right? Exactly. Then what are we saying to that culture of parents who allowed their 16, 17, because these are the ages that we're talking about in question for the trial that he was just convicted of these child sex crimes, right? So you want to send your 16 or 17-year-old to work on a job after school by themselves without any adult supervision on their way there, on their way home. You want to allow your 16 and 17-year-old kid to drive to and from school, right? We have 16 and 17-year-old kids who are actively engaging in sex, especially during the 90s. Okay, to be a virgin at the age of 16 in the 90s was a very rare case. So if we're saying, I just want you guys to hear me out, and I just want you guys to really look at this, just this part right here. If we're saying that it's inappropriate for R. Kelly to have had sexual contact with these women because their age of consent was below the legal age of consent at that time, I think that we have to ask some other bigger questions about the way our society is mapped out when it comes to the way that we see these kids at the same age. Because even now, we're allowing our kids to go out at 16 and 17. Water boys on the side of the street in Atlanta are 6 and 7 years old. No parental supervision. No police are pulling them over. Right. Okay. But we feel the need to say that these are children and these children need to be protected, but they have been dropped off oftentimes by the same parents at these concerts where R. Kelly had access to them. Now, I just want you guys to follow me here. His attorney in this case was lax because he said to himself, because you guys didn't see all of the evidence, okay? You didn't see all of the evidence in the background. You didn't see all of the evidence presented. And the media wasn't even allowed in the courtroom. So the media was only allowed to listen to small snippets of audio that was played in the trial. Okay. So there were various inconsistencies in the stories presented. There were a lot of inconsistencies in the perspective presented in order to get him convicted of this racketeering charge. Okay. Inappropriate sex crimes. What I found to be very interesting is that he was actually convicted of violating one of the Mann Act. How many? Two? Maybe two of the Mann Act laws. That was interesting to me. And just for you guys who do not know, let's go to that one. For you guys who do not know what a Mann Act is, I'm going to pull it up. My producer's over there doing a lot of stuff. Don't know what those things are. No idea. Okay. So the Mann Act is a law put in place in New York to prevent people from doing things like sex trafficking, illegal, what they call immoral. It prevents a person from taking another person, whomever that person is, across state lines with the intention of doing an act that is considered to be immoral. That's specifically what it is. Okay. So morality in and of itself is quite subjective. Yes, no, maybe so. So what I may consider to be moral, you may not consider that to be moral. You know, we may come from two different backgrounds, and because we come from two very distinctive individual backgrounds, our viewpoints it doesn't vacate the idea of a valid premise for either one of us. But when we're talking about we're talking about the law. What is really on trial here? I don't think that you guys really see the bigger picture. Our culture is on trial here. Our society is on trial here. The shifts in our society have now decided to criminalize old social norms, even current social norms. So what that means is when we look at our kids, and here, this is the biggest thing for me. It's okay for the legal system to charge our children as an adult when they're 16, when they're 17. But we're saying that our 16 and our 17-year-olds cannot consent to sex, even if they are consenting to sex. Okay? We're saying that doesn't account for legal consent. It's okay for the law, right, to use the age of 16 and 17 based on maturation level when it is in the interest of the law. But when it comes to us in our society, in our culture, which was very much normal back then, okay, 17 is a whole child then. It's okay for Aaliyah to make sexualized music at the age of 15. But it's not okay for Aaliyah, who was a very consenting and eager person, willing participant, according to the testimony rendered by the person who officiated their wedding. Okay? Thought they were two regular people. Okay? So it's okay for Aaliyah to get married to this man who is 27 only in that society. And it was hush hushed. But now in this society, it's not okay for her to have gotten married to this man. It's not okay, but it still is okay for her to have made the music that she made. And I'm not, hey, look, I'm not hating on any of the music that was made back then. I'm not hating on her position or their marriage or anything like that. My personal purviews just have no weight here. But I'm just looking at the logical sequence of actions. What I'm looking at is the fact that we in modern day society have condemned our old societal ways in a way that says that they're now outlawed and now they are criminal acts. So it's beyond the change of time. We're going to overlook the fact that these women preyed on R. Kelly. We're going to overlook the fact that they never would have been in those circumstances. Nobody kidnapped these women. None of these women testified to being kidnapped. None of them. So to me, I find that quite interesting to hear that a jury has convicted this man when nobody here, because nobody's looking at the fact, why is it that he was acquitted back then? Nobody's saying that they were kidnapped. Now, one of the young ladies who was 20, in her testimony, she says that she approached them and she was invited in, and then they told her to stay in this room. And at some point after they had left her in the room, she realized the door was locked from the outside. But my question for her is that at 20 years old, because we're talking about a grown woman now, right? How did you end up in that room in the first place? Somebody kidnap you and take you there? The answer was no. Now, these inconsistencies that were heard behind the walls, right? These are inconsistencies that never made it to the courtroom. So for the jury to hear. And this is what I found really interesting about this case. The prosecution picked and prodded on which evidence that they would present and how thorough they would present that evidence. For me, it's the fact that I feel like a gross miscarriage of justice has been done in this case. Because what it says is that once a person has been acquitted of a crime, that person can now be retried for that crime, which is double jeopardy. All we have to do is say it's racketeering. So, immorality. Let's talk about the Mann Act and what made R. Kelly's conviction stick on the Mann Act. So, several of the jurors sat through and listened to testimony rendered by these young ladies as they were charging him for racketeering. Okay. I found that to be quite interesting that they would listen to how these women talked about what Kevin Samuels just normalized for you guys, domestic discipline. Okay. He bought the Kevin Samuels before this case was even pushed forward. He bought that forward and nobody questioned him but this platform. Nobody questioned him but this platform. But he brought domestic discipline into pop culture discussions, okay? Now, let's talk about that. Because for me, when I had that conversation about Kevin Samuels' reference to domestic discipline, versus what it clearly was, the incident clearly was domestic violence. Okay. We talked about the fact that domestic discipline is a component that belongs within the confines of alternative lifestyle culture. Those are people who are into BDSM culture. So if you are not a person into that type of lifestyle, you wouldn't know, which the vast majority of American culture is. R. Kelly clearly is a member of the BDSM community. Now, it was very interesting to me how, hey, official urban therapist, how are you? Hey, Mario J2. But so what I found to be interesting is that you want to give this man a fair trial. What you have to do is give him a jury of his peers. That means you would have to be charged, you would have to have people judging him who are a part of that culture. Because when we talk about cult, and I have a problem with the fact that pop culture is cult labeling the alternative lifestyle community of BDSM community. I find that to be quite disturbing. In that case, Christianity is a cult. Likewise, in that case, Catholicism is a cult. Protestants, Methodists, Churches of Christ, they're all cults. Because what you're saying is that people are not allowed to practice freely what it is that they believe in as a culture. People are not able to re-identify with the culture they feel more comfortable with. So people who live their lives differently are committing crimes because they're not a part, they don't normalize themselves as a part of pop culture. I'm quite disappointed. The audio that was played to prove the fact that he had a cult like mentality and that he was sexually abusing these women, and that the people he brought across state lines were brought across state lines with an intention to create or commit an immoral act was audio from a recording of a bondage session with him and a sub, where the female was yelling, yes, I think a piece of white trash daddy punish me or something like that. And then you could hear the flogging in the aftermath. And I know a lot of you may not understand because a lot of you may not be a part of BDSM culture. And even if you are not a part of BDSM culture, maybe that's something that you've not studied, something you don't understand, fetishes and whips and chains and all that good stuff. And that's fine. But for those people who are scholars who have studied bondage um, and the principles of dominatrix and sadomasochism, if you are understanding that this is just a part of that process, I'm sure you're confused just like I am. Like, that's what you're going to use? What makes it immoral if that's a part of their subculture? So now we're questioning a lot of things. I feel like we should be talking about the fact that the age differential and what happens in pop culture in society right now. Even I posed the question in one of my dating groups, okay, and it was unrelated to this. It was just a question out there. Do you think that women bond better and have more meaningful relationships with older men or younger men? And what do you guys think the answer was? The vast majority of women are going to bond with older men because women age, the maturation wise, 10 to 15 years faster than the male brain. So, what I'm saying is it's quite disturbing considering the fact that a lot of your grandparents have this same level of age differential. How old is your grandmother? How old is your grandfather? How old were your parents? What was the age differential between them? How much older? What's the oldest guy that your mother tells you that she's dated when she was younger? These are the questions that I have for you guys. When we start having these conversations around age, it's okay for us to talk about how it is that Kevin Samuels, the God of all humanity, right? But that's the thing. You know, it's okay if Kevin Samuel says, "Okay, I'm 52 and I'm out here looking for 20-year-olds." I'm 52 and I'm looking for women who are in their early 20s. Help me make it make sense for me. You guys are okay with sitting with that, with hearing that, but then you want to literally crucify R. Kelly for marrying a willing 15-year-old Aaliyah. This girl went out of her way to get what she needed for them to get married. I just don't, I don't understand it. I don't understand it. Kevin never said that. Are you sure?
I heard him say that.
Right? Are you sure? How long have you been following that guy? How closely? How closely? Leave Kevin out of this. Why not? Why leave Kevin out of this? Kevin Samuels referenced two things here. Okay. Your parents are 15 years apart? Exactly. That's what I'm saying. So Kevin Samuels referenced two things that we've seen here. Kevin Samuels referenced domestic discipline, but he was justifying domestic violence. Exactly. And domestic discipline is actually what was taking place in the audio played during the R. Kelly trial. Clearly, that's the dynamic. Clearly, that was the dynamic. I mean, there's no question about it. So R. Kelly bought it on himself how? By living and being a part of regular pop culture. Because popular culture back then normalized everything that R. Kelly was doing as far as the age of these young women are concerned. Exactly. Not just him though.
I mean, all of them got some type of choice. What the bouncer, Joe, what isn't that? All of them went through that same type of situation.
Yeah. Temptations.
Yeah.
We can keep going. Ron Isley. Yeah. It's just you guys, I can name names and drop names all day. Okay. We can do dances around this all day. But what you're not going to convince me is that a 20-year-old who went after R. Kelly and his entourage to have sex with him for fame, recognition, you're not going to convince me that R. Kelly is guilty of any sex crime of that young lady. And that's the only one that he would come close to, for me, being guilty of a sex crime against. I believe very heavily if there is no yes, there is a no by default. Okay. That's what I believe quite heavily. So when it comes to rape charges and allegations of rape and things like that, I'm heavily, on that side. And I stand by 100% that premise. In this case with R. Kelly, there was never a no, there was never a stop. There was always a let's do this. There was always a what's in this for me. There was always a let me get into this situation to see how it benefits me. So I just, I just can't with that. So Miss Sandy says R. Kelly was in an interview and he was asked the question, "Do you like young girls?" All he had to do was say no. Instead, he said, "When we talking young, how old?" I think that that's a great question to ask in response to that. Kevin Samuels was asked, "Does he like young girls?" And he said, "Yes, I like them in their early 20s." So I think that we have to, I think that we have to be very honest. Okay. We have to be very honest and we have to call a thing a thing. Is it difficult, you know, to sit with these charges? Sure. I'm still going to listen to R. Kelly music. I love him as an artist. I feel like he's done some great work. I've never had sex with him. Been in the same spaces with him several times. I know lots of other people who have been in the same space with him musically. Very, very young girls. And none of them have had sex with R. Kelly. I've not had sex with R. Kelly. And I wasn't put in a sexually compromising position either. Neither were they. So for me, I gotta call a spade a spade. If you go after a person for a particular reason, or if you see yourself in a particular situation, I feel like you should know at a certain age where other people around you consider you to be a mature individual who is capable of making wise and informed decisions. I feel like your decisions should lead to positive outcomes. Are there criminals in this world that we live in? Of course, right? Are there spaces where women can be lured into situations, right? Where they now are at risk of a crime being committed against them? I'm having a hard time sitting with that one. I don't know. I've heard a lot of horror stories. I've heard a tremendous amount of rape trauma stories in my years, and none of the testimony that I heard, nothing that I read from transcripts, nothing that I've covered during this case says that R. Kelly ran any illegal operation. None of it. Now, personally, the way I feel about the age of maturation in the United States, I have always felt like it was a bit beyond where it should be. You are a country built off of "In God We Trust," built off of the remnants of Christianity. According to your Christian Bible, a human being is responsible for their own sins at the age of 12. Fully at the age of 12. So you're willing to give a person a whole 6 years to adapt? I don't know. In Hispanic culture, women become young women at age 15. Men become young men at age 14. A quinceañera is meant to celebrate a woman's introduction into womanhood. So I don't know. Official Urban Therapist says, as I think about it, I'm not sure what sexual misconduct means to me because of the double standards of maturation. Right. To me, sexual misconduct means rape.
That's all that.
That's it. That's it. I think that that's the clearest indication of what sexual misconduct is to conduct yourself outside of the expectations of a sexual situation. So that means that when somebody asks you to stop, or when somebody says that they're not interested in engaging in any sexual acts and you continue to engage in that sexual act. For example, like that 20-year-old, like I told you guys, I felt like that was the only one that kind of, to me, would qualify. The only problem is it's way outside of the statutes of limitation, right? And that's an individual sex crime. Do I feel like he's guilty of that? Possibly, but guilty of what? Her, according to her testimony. Okay, this is the one that was 20 years old at the time. She was in a locked room and she felt like they had left her there for days. Who knows if she's accurate in her depiction of the situation or not? I don't know. I can't say, because if you are starved, even for one day, you kind of lose track of time because you're starving, and your intrapsyche, especially if you found that you've been locked into a room and you can't get out, you lose track of time. You lose track of your situational awareness, even. But this young lady says that they kept her in there for days. And once the door was unlocked and they gave her a meal, the first meal that she had had in days, she ate that meal. And then she doesn't remember anything until she woke up. And when she woke up, at whatever time had passed, she observed R. Kelly pulling his clothes up. So for her, she could only assume that something sexual had happened and that she wasn't willing to engage in sexual activity. Now, there were several inconsistencies in her story when they talked about this, and when this story was initially presented, prior to be taking the trial, and they didn't even, the spaces they couldn't go, they didn't go in cross-examination. But I want to say this: it's okay to not know. If something happened to you, if you are sexually assaulted and you don't remember, it's okay to not recall, because that's actually a very normative response. But to me, when you feel like you have to fill in these gaps and things like that, and you start fabricating a story and confabulating like a child, to me, it says that there is something that is not being genuine, right? So I don't know if the woman was lying. you know I feel like something definitely happened, whatever that something was, and whatever the extent of that happened to be. I don't feel like we'll ever really know, right? But I feel like what I have to say is that the facts do not say this man, all the other situations do not say that this man is guilty of racketeering charge, okay? Like, what are there, like 35, 34, 35 principles of racketeering? This just does not. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Okay. Now, as for as far as a racketeering, because racketeering charges, I'm not sure how much you guys know about the legalities of it, but racketeering charges kind of more so apply to the misappropriation of funds. Right, right. Exactly. Right. And you have all of these people, and to me, I'm telling you, the nail in the coffin for me was the fact that this guy has a spiritual advisor, his coach, who stood by him the entire time. And this person was there. He was there during all of these situations. He saw all of these women who came in and out of this guy's life. He advised him spiritually on the practices of his life as he's moving and making decisions in his life. And this man stood by him. So this man who has daughters, a wife, females in his family, he stood by him. Why? Because it tells me that R. Kelly was the one hunted. I'm sorry. When it comes to accountability, I'm sorry. I'm calling for the accountability of the parents in this case, because my thing is this: You do not gain access to women who are underage, slightly underage, right? You don't gain access to those young ladies if they didn't want to be in your company. Nobody forced them into your company. If any of these women were screaming, or the young man, right? If any of these people were screaming, rape, kidnap me, abducted me, I was checking my mail. All of a sudden, weird white van pulled up, snatched my ass on the inside, and I woke up in a dark room. If any of this were the case, this conversation would be totally different. I am a person who stands heavily against domestic violence, rape crimes, any crimes committed against anyone. But really, I stand heavily against crimes that are committed against the women. But I also stand against blasphemy and BS. So for me, it's all about what really happened. And, I just can't see. I can't see a 17-year-old as incapable of making a decision that affects their outcomes as much as sleeping with a star, right? I can't say that. More than I can say that, what is it? Creflo Dollar is racketeering. I can't say either one of those things, because I'm telling you, if you're 17 and we can try you as an adult, if you're 16 and we can try you as an adult, what is the difference between you making a decision about what to do with your physical body and engage in sex? And most 15-year-olds are engaging in sex. I got another question for you guys. So what age were you when you lost your virginity? Most Americans lose their virginity when they're around 13 at the latest. That's You can consent to going to your doctor's office by yourself at 16. You can put your parents out of your doctor's appointment at 16. But R. Kelly committed a crime here. You guys, y'all gotta make it make sense to me. You either believe that people are smart enough to make their own decisions and be in charge of their bodies, because that's exactly what the conversations are about when they make that decision to go to their doctor's appointments by themselves at 16. I just want you to know. Okay. So you're either a person who advocates and says that your kids, smart enough to make wise decisions and they're, responsible for their own autonomy at age 16, which I can definitely say back in the 90s, that was a thing. 16-year-olds sometimes had a job working more hours than we see 40-year-olds today working. Those are those same people. Their ass is burnt out now. But so I think that we have to be asking ourselves tougher questions. We have to be asking ourselves, why are we a country? Why are we a community of people who want so hard, so bad for the laws to be bent when it's in the interest of the legal system, the same legal system that we always say is against our Black and brown boys? So let's look at some of the comments before I move on to the next one. So Miss Andy says, so are you saying the age of consent should be lower? It already is. Oh, goodness. Oh, girl. You almost made me choke on this juice. Says, how are you going to defend this predator, but you don't like Kevin Samuels? Show me a pray, and then I'll answer the question. Says, it sounds like you don't agree with the law, but the law is the law. Of course. And R. Kelly's lawyer is going to appeal this case. So I wouldn't say I don't agree with the law. I feel like the law was misinterpreted. In this particular case was a miscarriage of justice. Right. Because this is double jeopardy. Everything that they presented in this case were facts that were presented in the previous case of allegations, excuse me, against R. Kelly, and he was acquitted of those charges. So I'm against double jeopardy. So let's go back to the last one. What about Aaliyah?
That's all he said. When we asked her, she has an answer to your question. Leo. You told us people something down below.
So Aaliyah, it was okay for Aaliyah to make sexualized music back in the 90s and dress provocatively, almost nude, right?
Yeah.
And to go out of her way to marry this guy. Oh, girl, no. So it says, well, I'm 39 and there are two women dating. One is 25 and the other is 27. So miss me with that. And they both a lot thinner than me. I don't know. You got to be careful out here in these streets, okay?
That name of Prey.
Aaliyah was not prey.
No, I don't think so.
Aaliyah was not prey.
A willing participant at best.
More than a willing participant.
You don't matter about you don't Prey.
Yeah, I speak on that one from personal knowledge. So she was not. She was very much in love with this man. And she went through a lot to get that technically legal ID created. Did you listen to the trial? Did you listen to the officiating, his comments? Probably not. So let me look, because producer is preoccupied over there. Okay. All right. No, actually, I haven't. So the official Irvin says believe that justice will be served when the others involved are tried and convicted. I think that's going to be a very interesting turn of events for so many people. So Mr. Brooks was the only one to say his parents had 15 years difference between them. Who else?
That's all you got.
What's going on, Rush? How are you? Oh my goodness.
Caught up.
Okay. I don't own rights to the music that you guys hear in the background, but it is R. Kelly. R. Kelly has made quite a few babies, okay, in this world with his music. So your body's calling for me. So was he pulling and luring people in with that song?
I think people lure each other in with that song.
Yeah, but you know, I'm trying to find a situation where he's a predator. Miss Sandy says, I'm willing to rob a bank, but it's against the law. It's only against the law if you get caught and tried and convicted. I'm just saying. You don't become a criminal until then. Let's put it like that. Says most likely his music created single family homes. Probably. And probably broke up healthy marriages. Playing in the background. But that's none of my business. Okay. So currently there are pending RICO cases now, and I think that this is a really important one because I feel like this is what's really important, that we expound on what all of this means, this conviction means for him, right? If he can get convicted in one state, which is New York, then these RICO charges that are in, what, he has them in two other states. Oh goodness, excuse me. Let me go here. So the RICO case is the that's in Chicago. Mm-mm-mm. There is another one though. One sec. Okay, so in the District of Illinois, he's facing child pornography and obstruction charges because they're going to use, and this is the interesting thing to me. You want to use the same evidence that was used and denied, that was used and he was tried and acquitted of. It, obviously, what we're saying is it's okay to continue to do this. So here's the thing. If R. Kelly is convicted on these RICO charges, if he is convicted on additional charges, all of those charges are going to be based off of the evidence used in this case, based off of the evidence used in the original case, because that's what they have. But it'll be in a different circuit, right? Different court. Do you think that that's fair? That's now my question for you guys. And that means also those people who were a part of his entourage, people that had protections in this case, now have no protections in these other cases because their agreements are with these authorities over here as it relates to this case. So let's talk about it. Miss Sandy says, you're a criminal if you commit the crime. You might not be a convicted criminal, but you're still a criminal according to the definition. Are you? Oh, I didn't miss that one. But so, Miss Sandy, give me a little bit of more clarification, if you will. Does everybody else agree with this one?
Well, I don't know about that.
Are you guys familiar with slander charges? Right, right. Mr. Brooks says no. Anybody else agree with Miss Andy? In order for a person to be a criminal, a person has to be found guilty of a crime. If you go out and you tell somebody, oh, that person's a rapist, I'm going to use that specifically. If you go out and say, oh, that person's a rapist, he's a rapist, he raped my cousin, sister's brother and friend, whatever, and you're at a party, right? And the party has over 1,000 people in attendance. And when you start screaming out these allegations of rape, the music stops. And the DJ brings you over there to announce it on the loudspeakers, right? What do you think is going to happen in the aftermath? A criminal is a person who engages in criminal acts, but in order for you to engage in a criminal act, you have to be founded to have engaged in said acts. So you don't get caught, you're not a criminal. For example, a criminal background check is conducted on people to make sure that they have not been convicted,
Like, you be as big as them, big out there.
you know,
Background check.
of engaging in criminal acts, which is how so many people, for example, French authorities recently learned after this man committed suicide that one of their police officers, this was yesterday, by the way, one of their police officers was the biggest serial killer known to history over there. They didn't know that until he committed suicide. He was the police officer that was investigating several of the cases. He kidnapped, raped, beat, brutally battered so many different women and men, different age groups, and all of that. He wasn't a criminal. He retired from serving his country, his municipal precinct. So someone doesn't commit a crime until you've proven that they've committed a crime. So this man was a highly decorated officer, got his retirement pension, if you will, but he was a whole criminal for 20 something years, almost 30 years. Yeah, 30 years. I think his first crime was in 84. But he wasn't labeled as a criminal until his suicide note gave, way for him to now be labeled as a criminal. He was a decorated officer. That's what he was. Hey, Keisha, how are you? So, essentially, if you went to a party and you made that announcement and you call that guy a rapist, even if you know it with all of your heart, that person can take you to court for slander. Because now you pinged him in front of everybody, a whole crowd, and you defamed his character in front of everybody, but he's never been convicted. So you can't say that he's a rapist. Even if you know it in your heart that he is, you can't say that he's a rapist. If he goes and applies for a job, you could say that he's a rapist, but that would be defamation of character unless they find it on his background check. No, not to. So what is a criminal? So what is the purpose? I'm going to let anybody answer. What is the purpose of a criminal history check, criminal background check when you're applying for a job?
You were kind of convicted what you have had in the past. Perhaps you or whatever. Make sure you're not a convicted criminal.
It's meant to clear you for work with a said population of people, right? So many people ask me, how is it that children die in foster care and those foster parents went through several criminal history checks, right? How is it that people are raped in foster care and those foster parents have gone through several criminal history checks? How is it that people are abused in foster care, but those people go through several criminal history checks? Not only do they go through a criminal history check, they also go through we use Bright from the start here in Georgia. They go through a history check with defects, Department of Family and Children's Services. So those people are criminals according to Miss Sandy, but they're not. So if a person has no criminal history, they are allowed to obtain some of the highest levels of clearances. So they're not a criminal. So we can't say that. It is slander, defamation of character. If we're calling a person a criminal before there is any proof that they've committed a crime. That's why I advocated so heavily for Brian Laundrie. Show me the evidence that he committed a crime. Try him and convict him. Find the pieces. Find a video. But I could call Gabby Petito a criminal because we could physically see the abrasions on Brian Laundrie. We verbally we heard the verbal admission of her guilt from her own mouth and from his and from outside onlookers who had no vested interest in the case. You see the difference? That's not slander because there is physical evidence of this thing happening. Says they have no history that we know about. So if I go around robbing banks now and get caught, am I a criminal? No, I can't call you a criminal. I have an ex, and his father went down as one of the most interesting, notorious bank robbers in U.S. history. And he only got caught because he got distracted by a pretty lady walking across the street. And he had robbed several banks. And all I'll say is this. He's only been convicted of what he's been convicted of. And I'll leave it at that. So, here is my thing with the R. Kelly case, you guys. Do I feel like R. Kelly has some very sketchy behaviors when we're looking at it from a pop culture perspective? Of course. Okay. Do I feel like the people who are a part of his entourage, the people who followed him, the people who were supportive around him, right? Do I feel like those people were sketchy in the decisions that they made? I feel like people will do anything for money. If anything, this proves to us that people will do anything for money. But I think the greater levels of accountability need to be pushed onto the parents of these children. If we are to say that R. Kelly committed a sex crime against children, do I feel like those people closest to R. Kelly who were responsible for finding the right type of talent for him because he liked a particular type of look? I'm gonna, I tell you guys all the time that there's a reason that people like Kevin Samuels exist, because there are some difficult truths that some of us don't like to sit with. The realities are this. There are many things that Kevin Samuels has said on his show that I did not disagree with and I never delved into, but I showed you guys a ton of footage. But the reason is because some of these things are their innate truths. We know that men naturally, longitudinally, for centuries, have been older than women by at least 14 years. At least. Right? We've known for ages that women are naturally attuned and, gravitate towards an older guy for reasons of security. We've known that women are the masters of manipulation for ages for that said reason, because women have an innate need to be supported, provided for, and protected. Men have an innate need to be the provider males to protect these women. Right? And they have an innate need to feel respected. A woman cannot respect. I'm just going to talk about the basic psyche of human nature. Okay. A woman cannot respect someone that she sees as her equal. She won't. She cannot. You guys could bring up as many people as you want from whatever you want and find whatever couples you want. Bring them forward. When she sees you as her equal, she cannot and will not respect you. Because when we look at respectability politics apply in difficult engagement, difficult encounters. So when she is pissed off at you, will this woman still bite her tongue, hold her words, submit to your authority? When you anger her in public spaces, if you are both equals, you're the same age as her, you're the same age group as her, you're paying the same bill she's paying, you guys are splitting shit 50-50, you're splitting it whatever way. What happens is she won't submit because she realizes that she has as big a dog in the fight as you. So now there is a fight. There is a pull. for control, for leadership. That is what happens in the. Listen, I'm sorry, I can't, we can't fight human nature. Okay. A couple of things that he mentions. And that's why there is a huge age gap. There is why we have to look at the situation for what it is. These women, whether they were younger than 18 or not, 17, a couple of days from your 18th birthday, I'm sorry, it doesn't say sexual misconduct to me. I'm sorry, you guys. I'm sorry. At 17, if you're allowing your child to go out to work on their own, if you're allowing your child to go to concerts on their own, if you're allowing your child to drive without you in the car with them while they are driving to whatever destination they're driving to, if you're allowing your child the freedom to be out here in these streets without being checked about where they are at every waking moment, without you, you are a hypocrite. If you are a person who says that R. Kelly committed these sex crimes against children, because it tells me that you don't believe that these young women were children at all. It tells me that you believe these young women were old enough to make an informed decision. The way that you move and you relate to your parenting situation tells me a lot about your basic premise and your basic belief systems. I'm just not here for the hypocrisy. So if that means that you guys have to account for the fact that we live in a society that is filled with the hypocrisy, double standards, let's call a spade a spade. Did R. Kelly have some sketchy behavior? If we're trying to compare that to what pop culture expects, he's a part of alternative lifestyle culture. If we're looking at it from that lens, nothing was out of place with what R. Kelly was doing. What is that guy's name? It wasn't Sam Cooke. Do you remember the guy? Do you remember the guy from back in the day? He pissed on the white women and leaked the sex tape of him not only pissing but shitting on white women in their mouths and things like that. God, it escapes my memory. It escapes my memory. But he was the man that rocked He rocked pop culture in Black community. I mean, he pissed everybody off. And that was in the 80s. That was in the late 80s to the 90s. Yes. God, what is that guy's name? I've talked about him before on this channel. I probably just didn't mention that. I'm going to remember it, you guys. And I'm going to come back and I'm going to do another show on him. Let me call Bailey. Let me see if he remembers. Because I know he knows. Where's my personal phone? Hold on. Read me the comment, producer.
So when you were a child, you never stuck around and did something you weren't supposed to do. All parents couldn't watch us 24/7.
These young ladies never said that they were. I'm going off of their testimony. They never said that they were sneaking to a concert. They never said they were sneaking when they met R. Kelly. I'm going off of their testimony. And the answer is no. I don't believe in sneaking and doing anything. If I'm going to do it, it's because I'm interested in it and I'm going to get it done. Hold on a sec. God, what is that guy's name? That is crazy. You know how when you have a name like on the tip of your tongue and you just can't. Does anybody on here? I know most of my audience is fairly young. If anybody on here is over the age of 50, I know you. I know you remember this guy. Dang it, he's not answering the phone. God, what is the dude name? Let me see if I can find it on Google, you guys. Hold on a sec. We're going to go to a break while I find it. But when I come back, I am going to have it. So give me just a sec. Hmm. Nope. Wait. Mm-mm. God, he was that guy. Let me see. Who is that guy? Who is he? He was into music, I think. I don't see how Bieber uses his keyboard. You guys, my son, I'm using his keyboard. Uh-uh. No, that's not him. Was he a movie star or something? I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to. God, that is just crazy. It's crazy. I just hate it when that happens. But I'm sure I'm gonna have the answer when I come back. Hold on, let me look at Miss Andy. What you say? What are you saying? Sneaking meaning they were probably telling their parents they were going to a concert with Jessica and Kim, but omitted the R. Kelly would be there. They're sneaking around. What, are you thinking that their parents were retarded or something?
They were getting paid or something.
So if they were going to an R. Kelly concert, I'm pretty sure their parents knew because there weren't a whole bunch of. So back in the 90s, it's not the same as today, where you guys in these societies have like tons of concerts premiering at the same time, a lot of stuff going on. Back then, it wasn't that common to have multiple different concerts going on. So if there was an event, especially in the Black community, pretty much everybody knew about it. And there was some level of preparation that had to be done for these young girls to go there and attend these events. So, no. I can't sit with that. So how are you guys feeling? I'm gonna figure out that guy's name because I just can't. But yeah, he was the first. He was the first controversial Black guy to do the same thing. And I think you know what? In the 90s, when R. Kelly was tried for all this, I remember they brought his name up, and I was like, oh my God, he is an embarrassment. Shame. But hold on. Let's see. Let me go here to says didn't the parents of one or two of the girls drop them off at the concert? Of course. Of course. We're gonna act like we don't even know that though. So I'm going to read the whew, good God. The very interesting relationship question of the day. So hold on, let me pull this up. Says Dr. J, my wife and I have been married for the past 20 where I get a 20 past 17 years. Hold on a sec.
What's up?
Hey, I'm doing my show, right? And I know that you were gonna remember this dude because, like, I know we talked about it before. You remember that dude? Who was that dude from the late 80s, 90s, who was controversial for releasing a little sex tape where he pissed and shitted on the white women and was calling them out of their names and racial slurs and stuff.
Talking about Chuck Berry.
Chuck Berry, that's him. I was like, yep, Chuck Berry. I knew you were gonna remember, but okay, that's all I wanted. Let me wrap this up. Yeah. See, I knew Bailey would remember.
You said the 80s, that was in the 40s.
No.
In the 80s?
That was in the 80s. Yep, that was in the 80s when when the sex tapes. Yeah, VHS. And it was brutal. It was brutal.
I had said Chuck Berry earlier. He was doing that thick line off and stuff when he was trying to get in.
Yep. But do you guys remember that?
Yeah, I remember. You mentioned I remember.
Yeah, y'all gotta look. It is, and he was brutal with it. He would have, man, listen, when I watched like the first one, I couldn't even finish because I was like, oh my God. Completely disrespecting them with racial slurs and everything. And then, he was big for BDSM because he was a sadist, you know? And he was just like,
he was a big time.
open your mouth. I'm like, oh my God. Oh God, it was terrible. Like, you don't know what it is you're going to be looking at. Oh yeah, but with Chuck Berry, let me tell you something. It was, if you only knew the extent to where, man, listen. Yeah, he didn't care. He didn't care if they were willing or non-willing participants. And boy, that guy. But let me get back to reading this relationship questions. So, Dr. J, my wife and I have been married for, the past 17 years, and we have 3 boys together. It's just it's all clobbered up. My mother and sisters have always been supportive of our marriage and have helped us out in so many ways when it comes to supporting our sons. Okay. Recently, I learned that my wife married me so that she would not be considered a whore by her family because she was pregnant with our first child, and I found out this kid may not be mine by way of her best friend. Sir, if you're watching, that's not her best friend. Just not. Who I have been sleeping with on and off for the past 2 years. What? Where do y'all get this stuff from? Oh my goodness. Oh. So obvious, clearly that's not her best friend because she's sleeping with you for one. Like, and she's telling you all the secrets and stuff. Who does that?
She did
that. Y'all should see the look the producer giving me. Okay, so the message goes on and says, I had a DNA test done and my son came out to be our son together. And I'm now feeling like her best friend manipulated me into the sexual relationship by planting all of this negativity in my head. Okay, so where's Miss Sandy? Miss Sandy, do you feel like the friend should be convicted of sexual misconduct? Because, oh man. My wife found out about the paternity test while on vacation. How did she find out about? And came back early where she caught us in bed together. I'm beyond words. And now I am at my sister's place due to her not wanting to be with me anymore. Do I fight for my marriage or do I let it all go?
Oh no, bro. It might mess it up. You might mess it up.
I'm still reading, y'all. Y'all let me know your responses to everything I read so far. So he goes on to say, my mothers and sisters all say that I had the right to test my son if I wanted to. But for some strange reason, I feel guilty and want to tell my wife all of the other things her friend has told me. What? You see, like that's the reason. You can't, man, listen, you can't trust them. Ladies, stop telling your business to your friends. They're not loyal. Only in America. It says, my mother and sisters all say I had the right to test my son if I wanted to, but for some strange reason I feel guilty and want to tell my wife all of the other things her friends has told me because they have been closer since I have been put out. But my wife doesn't know that her friend is still messaging me and trying really hard to hook up after we hooked up once 2 weeks ago. I know it is a lot, but I'm confused now. Help.
Sign the paper, my bro.
Sir.
Sign on paper, that's over.
I want to understand the wife's mindset. I mean, I understand keep your enemies closer than your friends or whatever, but I don't think that I'm closest to I don't know. No, it's been like 17 years. You've been married for 17 years. They've been together more than 17 because it says they got married because she was pregnant.
That's a bag ready to hold.
All right, let's decompress. Let's unpack all of this, okay? So let me see if I can. Maybe I can copy this in. I don't know my word because this is a lot. Let me copy it in and post it for you guys. Man, this is crazy. It won't let me copy it from my email. Okay, so this is a lot. So what I'll say is this. I feel like the frenemy is probably a better term, is driving the wedge between the two of you. And I'm really curious as to what's going on with her having any type of close relationship with this young lady. And so you said that she caught you two in bed together. And I'm guessing that was more than the 2 weeks ago because you've slept with the friend since you've been out of the house. And you're confused as to why your wife is still close to the friend. I'm confused about that. I don't know if that's what you're confused about, but I'm confused about how it is you walk in on a person in bed with your husband who also is the culprit as to why you even came back on vacation early in the first place. I'm not saying that she should be mad at the friend versus being mad at you because I really don't believe in that, but I think that she needs distance from both of you. I think that you need some time to focus on yourself, though, because I think the biggest thing here is that you keep finding yourself in bed with her friend and you're looking for something, literally. Like, so How do you go back and you have sex with the same woman that got you kicked out right after she got you kicked out?
Yeah, you keep making them ball board again.
Sir, there are hookers out here.
I guess
I don't condone sex workers and I don't shame them either, but that's what they make sex workers for. So you can keep your nose clean from the situation that you just found yourself in, literally. And not only that, to uncloud all that judgment, because it sounds to me like this woman is influential enough to get in your head, to get in your wife's head. I think you got to be asking some more difficult questions here. Where do you want to be? What do you want at this stage of your life? Like, God.
You want to take it ice cream too. You want best friend, wife, and wife too.
So I'm guessing you guys have a 17-year-old child. You got somebody that's about to graduate high school. In your house, you've done a DNA test. She leaves her vacation to come home early, catch you in bed with another woman that happens to be her best friend. Sir, listen. You need some time away. You need some time to do some self-reflection and worry about you, get yourself together. And your wife, she deserves to know everything about her frenemy. And that might not go over quite well initially because she may feel like you do have something to gain by lying to her or whatever, but I think that it's worth you actually just coming out and calling a thing and just telling her what's going on. Man, what do you guys think? Because it's just so many different layers, as far as the amount of time you guys have committed with one another, to one another, and obviously you still have other kids. I don't know how old your other children are, but I would say I don't encourage people to stay together for their children, but I do encourage people to stay in healthy relationships where they find that they can relate to someone in a healthy way versus trauma bonding. You found your way to one another's hearts at some point. I'm curious as to what was going on in your marriage that led to the infidelity in the first place, and why is it that that infidelity had to come by way of you sleeping with her friend? Like, you said that's what she gets for telling people her business. Miss Sandy, I think I'm gonna have to agree with you on that one.
She thought of her best friend. She couldn't find her, so she picked the wrong person.
You know what, my thoughts are everywhere. Sis, the marriage and the friendship will be over for me. Trust has been broken. So, Keisha, do you believe that trust is irrevocably broken after an affair? Like, for you, is that a thing? I feel like there is a lot there. I feel like there's a lot of layers. You guys have 3 children that you need to model appropriate behavior for. And I'm sure by now your sons know that you've been having an affair. Uh but first I think you need to focus on yourself. You're doing a lot of cycling. You're doing a lot of self-sabotaging, and I'm just wondering how long her friend has been in your ear and what that means, because apparently she's just lying. No, I mean, if you've done a DNA test and this kid came back to be yours, like, are you gonna go back and fuck him, with her again? Like, are you?
He did, but he got some intentions the other way, keeping him occupied. It's more than what you're saying. I guarantee you that. You talk to him, I have to say, well, you know.
Yeah, but why would you even converse with her? Like, what would be the purpose of having?
Maybe he want to know. He got caught in gossip scheme and.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Obviously, there is no reliable information.
But he lied too because he knows only he'll have a sex.
So you think the bottom line is him having sex with her?
He keep doing it, evidently. That don't have my accident.
He accidentally slipped into her vagina.
Yeah, they got caught in being with.
For sure. He probably is thinking that. But so Keisha says it was her best friend. He could have went elsewhere. I said the same thing. So I don't think he chose her. From what I'm reading, so it's either that so if you're watching this, okay, Gerald, what I need you to understand is this. It's either two things. You're either a serial cheater and she wasn't the only one that you were cheating with, or you have been beyond disingenuous. Wait, let me throw another one in there. Or maybe her friend has been targeting her the whole time and trying to destroy her relationship because, some people are your friends, but they're not really your friends. They're there, like they're present, right, in a relationship with you, but they're fighting for and hoping for your demise. They're only there to see you suffer and be in pain. I think that says something larger for this young lady. I think that she needs the time away from you guys because both of you are toxic for her. And obviously, if this happened right under her nose, who knows what else has been happening under her nose or how it is that she really is bonding with people, because there is something preventing her from being able to see what's going on. So infidelity doesn't happen unless there is space and opportunity for it to happen in our relationships. Betrayal, it just doesn't happen unless there is space and opportunity for it to happen in our lives, because naturally people are observers. We see before we do anything. We see, right? And we feel. Feelings lead to us, the greater component of our intuition or our spirit speaking to us and speaking life and existence and success into us and what we do. And the fact that her friend was able to maneuver herself in there, I told you guys, women are the master of manipulation. She's she has What did she do? Why are you pillow talking with her best friend though? Gerald, that's disgusting. So if you're gonna sleep with her friend, you can't be pillow talking with the other woman too. Like there has to be, there are boundaries, you guys, to cheating. Okay. If you're gonna cheat, you cannot be out here in these streets giving out intimate details about your personal life and making your wife look like a fool, because that's what's going on here. So Gerald, look, okay, if you love your wife, if this is something that you see yourself doing longitudinally and recovering from, if you genuinely want to add value to this woman's life in a positive way, and you want to recover from this and you really want to rebuild, I say fight for your marriage by way of being permissive and giving her space, because I think she needs some space, probably some extreme space from your toxic behaviors. But I think that first you should arrange an appropriate space in a public place. Okay. A meet with her so that you can sit with her and give her all the deets as to what it is that this conniving, sneaky person has been saying behind her back. Let me tell you, she may not believe him, but either way, she deserves to sit with it. Because let me tell you something. When we talk to people, when we do as women make a choice to confide in other folks, we do so, and we do so in a selective way. Women will never tell everybody everything. Women will tell bits and pieces of information to this friend, bits and pieces of information to that friend, bits and pieces of information to her mother, maybe her sister, but she'll never give somebody the full picture, because women are smart. When it comes to situations like this, especially when it's juicy stuff, women need to know innately who is the source, who really gave you this information. So if it ever surfaces, we need to know who to go to, who to check. So I say have a conversation, give her all the details about who said what, when, how, whatever. And if you want, I will say that your mother and your sisters are right. I mean, It's your kids, right? If it's your kids, you're entitled to a DNA test if you want Dana in there. What would you have done if this kid wasn't yours? I want to know the answer to that question. What are you looking for? What are you so afraid of? What's so unsettling in your marriage right now that you really are just looking for a way out? Like when people choose to have sex with a person's friend, that's a whole different level of low. It's too many sex workers out here. And they're affordable. Like, you know,
I would know.
they are. Like I had one guy tell me in a session, he was like he paid $120 for his sex partner per event. It works for him.
I mean,
You know, he was like he got a regular meeting with her, you know. He's paying a little less than what his co-insurance is for therapy. What? I'm just saying, make an investment in your wellness. If you, I'm not encouraging you to go out there and get a sex worker. I'm not doing that.
wow.
But
They only pay 120 a month.
yeah, but it's affordable options for you, and it's not risky options where you're sleeping with people that you can be accused of real affairs. Because I don't know if this is something real that you and the friend have, but I got a lot of questions about that. So let me make sure I've answered all your questions. Yeah, sex workers, it's business. Yeah, it is. I've had sex workers as clients. It's 100% a business for them.
That's not that bad for business.
It's 100% business for them. They don't care if they knew the person from high school.
Not the work, but the guy. That's not.
It's not. It's nothing. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. So an affair only can take place if the other party wants something meaningful.
His wife would be doing the same thing.
No, his wife thinks the same way. Why do you think wives look at sex workers as risky options, but it's not pragmatic for one? But they don't look at them as affairs because they know that what she's doing with him, which is the wife's husband, she's doing with all of her clients. So it doesn't matter. You know, hope she gave you the night of your life. Right. So, but the thing is, you guys see sex workers as high risk, but the reality is like they're at least honest. This is their job. Their body is their livelihood. So they have to be clean. Well, some of them aren't clean. I have some sex worker clients who have HIV and they get paid a lot to sleep with people. But those people know. That's all weird to me. Hold on. You said $40 under 20. I'm dead. I can't. I just can't. I give up. Throw the whole thing away. Whole broadcast. Oh my God. $40? You would pay
$40.
You can get sex as cheap as $40?
Yeah, you believe you can. That's why I say 120. He might be overpaying. The price over way down, and then I think.
Really?
I think it went way down.
Good God.
You got the age group.
Oh my God, you guys. Oh, I got a headache now. I don't know. So what? She got to have Walmart rollback prices?
Yeah, on certain days, they're going to have a little rollback cost.
I guess it's fair because men only last, 3-4 minutes. So.
Yeah. That's still the fact of what I ever get in here.
Oh my God, you guys, this guy, I can't. I'm looking at the rest of his comment. Do I fight for my marriage or do I let it go? So I made it clear that the paternity test for me, you guys, what do you guys think about him doing the paternity test? But for me, I think the paternity test is, I think it definitely warrants a conversation, deeper conversation, which is probably why the wife came back. But I got a lot of questions about that too. How did she find out? He said he wanted the paternity test because the best friend disclosed to him that the wife.
still lying to him.
Yeah, I believe she's lying too, but what other lies is she saying?
That's what I'm trying to tell you. What you tell your wife, she gonna think you trying to tell her everything. Even if you tell her everything, she gonna think you not up. Because it gets messed up now. He done done it too many times. He done done it too many times. That became something else. That thing became a thing now.
I don't know. Does his wife know? Though he didn't say the wife knew that he was having sex with a friend all this time.
If you go to something and tell her that, it's gonna be.
Nah, he probably doesn't need to tell her that. So I want to make sure I'm clear, Gerald. Don't tell her about. And I'm not telling you to lie to your wife, right? By omission. I'm just saying that you should go, unless she asks you about how long and how many times you've had sex with her friend.
That too many times, man.
Just leave that where it is, and just pray that she doesn't ask you if you've had sex with her after she kicked you out. Because
no, I don't want no accident. You do it too many times. That is saying something else.
What is it saying?
Yeah, you want to do.
Mr. Brooks said Walmart employees. Good God. Good God. My husband's no longer going to Walmart. Thanks, Mr. Brooks. God. I know we're not going to do. We're not going to. You're never going to Walmart.
At least not by himself.
Oh my God. Not going to Walmart at all. Good grief. Oh God. So I agree with the paternity test. I felt like, you can let her know why it is you got it done, what you felt about, what you felt insecurities about or whatever. That man, listen. And the producer says you better not get the best friend pregnant. So Gerald, I think that here's what I think. We're gonna push positive vibes your way, and we're gonna pray, wish, hope, all that you didn't get the best friend pregnant, because I think that she is evil in the highest form. She's the devil. She's the devil himself. Not religious. Good God. Good God. No. Oh my God. So I think you need to rebuke the best friend with everything in you. And we hope you didn't get the girl pregnant. But I think that you need to completely divest from the best friend, and then cut communication off. Like, to a certain extent, I feel like it's inappropriate for a man to maintain close connections with the wife's friends anyway. And that's not to say that you don't have to have their number stored somewhere for emergency backup, blah blah blah. But why are you having these conversations that lead to sex? Why are you being in these settings that lead to sex? Like, it's just you guys have a lot going on these days. Like, you don't have cameras in your house? I need oh my God. So I think that you should definitely fight for your marriage, but I think that you should fight from a distance and keep yourself at a safe distance from her. Says, but Walmart gave that raise. Now they will. It's still cheaper than the 120. Yeah. Okay. Bid war. But so I think that you should fight from a distance. Give your wife accurate space and accurate empathy in this situation, because I'm sure she's going through a lot emotionally. You guys just need to get yourselves a good couples therapist and figure out what's really brewing underneath all of this, because there's no way that all this surface stuff is going on and you guys don't have deeper seated issues that you need to address.
Your wife, and you're not having sex with nobody else, the other girl, you're gonna mess that up.
You said what?
You're gonna mess it up. You're not at home with her now. She keep calling him. What's gonna stop him doing her again? He can't cut it off.
Well, he could always cut it off. I think that, and here's the thing. I normally don't believe in blocking people, but if you feel like you have a very low index of self-control, block her. Okay? But I think that you should conscientiously do something different. right? Be intentional about doing something else,
Well,
which is not having sex with the woman that is your wife's best friend.
he better find a playmaker. He gonna leave something. You doing like that?
Miss Sandy says, with friends like that, who needs enemies? Girl, look.
Right there, something messed up. The wife he cut
I'm
off.
gonna
So,
say, that's what she gets for telling people her business. Keisha says he fell for it. The marriage and the friendship would be over for me. Trust has been broken. Say he could have went anywhere else. I agree with that. Because let me tell you, it hits different when it's a friend or a family member or somebody like that. At least it wasn't her sister. I've had situations in therapy where the husband had been caught with the sister.
I see it before too.
But so, oh gosh, and I'm not saying that it's a good thing to be sleeping with people's best friend. I'm not okay in that because that's definitely still just really messed up. I think people should stop cheating. Just stop cheating. Do what it is you want to do.
Mr. Brooks just said it already. You always both of them. You let me
So Mr. Brooks says, but real talk to the brother, he needs to walk away from both of them and get his life together and get his mental together. I agree with that. I agree to a certain extent. He has how many kids? 4 or 3? 3 boys. He has 3 young men. He has a person that is about to graduate from high school, potentially go to college.
He should talk about that before he slept with that woman.
Well, I agree with that too, but I think that it's important for men to invest longitudinally in their sons' lives.
I mean, he could never get on me with his wife doing it.
Yeah, but if he's been with her all this time, like I said, I'm curious as to whether or not he's a serial cheater, but if he's been with her all this time and he's only cheated with the best friend, I say they need to get rid of the best friend. She's poison to the relationship, to probably everybody she comes in contact with. Because let me tell you something, you guys understand this. Mental illness is real. Okay. Please understand, people are doing all types of things right now. If you have friends that are in your circle who suffer with borderline personality disorder or bipolar disorder, those two are very closely connected to one another as far as like symptom presentation. And they scream out sexual promiscuity sometimes by way of self injury. These people tend to put themselves in very dangerous and risky situations just as a means to feel something. And they have a tendency to be very suspicious about relationships, and they self-sabotage and sabotage other people's relationships and things like that. They're very empty people walking around, zero to no affect sometimes. So I think that we have to understand that that may be something that's contributing to the best friend's behavior. So my thing is this, or the husband, okay? I think that you need to get yourself together, Gerald. I think that you do need to give some space for your wife to get herself together, but I think that you need to set up a date and let her know that it's something very important that you need to express to her.
You know how you feel about that. If you give her space, she's gonna leave. She's gonna find somebody else. You know that.
You think so?
Mm-hmm. So you gotta set the pace for that.
Well, not necessarily. I've seen marriages come back from worse than this.
I mean, yeah.
I'm just gonna be honest.
He looked like he done did it by telling all his business and all that kind of that ain't the same.
No, the betrayal. So betrayals are at bay, and I don't think the sex is the biggest betrayal here. I do think you have a point, because I think that that confidence marker is probably the biggest betrayal.
The act they committed, but that confidentiality type thing, kind of,
Yeah.
That's going, man, you can't, some things don't need to be repeated to nobody, just me and you two be going outside the house.
Yeah.
Especially if the truth of what you said, that gonna make us not say trust him, but don't think that's anybody.
But I don't think, he hasn't said that he said anything. He said that these are things that this woman told him.
I'm talking about, but he's had to be changed. Everybody gonna want to know what you told him.
So I think set up a meeting in a public space where you can talk to her about all of the things that her friend has told you. Give her all the details. Do not go into all of that stuff about how many times you slept with her when you started sleeping. Unless she asks that question, do not go there. No, you don't know that. You don't know that. Lots of women will not ask because they don't really want to know the answer because they can't sit with an answer. So if she doesn't ask, do not tell.
Okay, she's not one of my asking that question. How long they been going on? How many times you do that?
Not in a public space. Not doing that. So I think that you guys should get a therapist after the fact. And hopefully you guys can work on infidelity recovery, rebuilding trust bonds and all of that stuff. But she has to know what her friend has been up to. That's the important thing. And I think it's worthwhile even noting, and I'm not telling you to make an excuse, but you better have a damn good excuse as to how it is you ended up in bed with this woman on the day that she caught you.
You fell away. You gonna tell her. Ain't no other way you can tell her what he was doing.
Because I'm sorry, just ain't gonna cut it.
You don't
So
direction in nobody's face by accident. It don't happen like that.
he can say he accidentally found his penis in her vagina.
You don't accidentally go erase it and put it in that. Let it go. Don't do that.
I'm not being serious, you guys. Good God.
That don't happen like that. When you try, they got to be intentional act.
I think Keisha is right. Go to that last comment.
So
Says,
married and stay single.
or don't get married and just be single.
Yeah, I'm trying to tell you, he already single. He don't commit to act to make himself single.
What did you say, Mr. Bruce? Let me look.
Get him now.
You said not trusted. Trust is the biggest betrayal because now she's not going to allow anybody to get close to a relationship or a friend. Yeah, maybe. I think that that's possible. I think it's possible to be hurt enough by the multiple betrayals in this situation for her to have some level of trust issues in relationships moving forward. But I think also if she's a healthy person and she's trying to heal, the fact that she's let her friend back in is really interesting to me. I don't know if that stands out as interesting to you guys, but it's very interesting to me. You know,
So that's betrayal of two people.
it is.
So
Because both of them are close and both of them owe them. You know, in normal situations, you guys hear me always talk about the woman don't owe you nothing, blah, blah, blah. But in this case, both of these people owe her fidelity, trust, communication, openness, and candidacy. So
but another woman without a friend, his chances of doing it would have been a lot better. But that friend thing kind of messed that up. You know, that kind of two against one. She don't want to fall either one of them again. She don't tell that. Yeah.
but she is though. That's the thing. Her friend is still close to her.
I mean, how can that be though? She gonna sleep. You think I'm her best friend of mine, sleep with my wife, we're gonna be friends. After I get knocked your ass out, you want to knock your ass. Yeah, I'm gonna take out her ass.
Oh my God. You guys heard the producer. The producer said, "Do you get finished knocking him on the ass?"
You tell him all my business.
Oh.
I'm gonna kick your butt.
But he didn't say that though. He didn't say that he was telling the friend. Why you keep going to that? He didn't say that he was telling her anything. He said that the friend was telling him.
The wife, I'm just saying that my best friend takes all my business. I'm saying, you know what I'm talking about? They reverse the roles. You know.
Definitely. Thank you, Keisha. Make sure you hit the like and the subscribe button. But I don't know. I feel like there are a lot of layers here, you know.
That's another level to probably go back and undo. That keep my mental stress.
I don't think it's a lot to undo, but I think it's a lot of layers to address. I think in unpacking the entire situation, Gerald, I'm going to be very honest. I really think that you have a salvageable situation with the right therapist. But you need to get you together. I can't stress that enough. And you have to ask yourself some deeper seated questions now. Like, why do you keep cycling back around with her best friend or friend? It's a little creepy. I'm just gonna say.
Wife and best friend, why you keep my husband?
I mean, I don't think the wife should ask either one of them that question. I think that what she can, I think the wife's questions at this point
How you
are,
supposed to my friend you doing something like that?
well, how do we move from this point, right? So
Robust.
where do things go so far south, so far left that we got lost in this whole thing and boundaries, the lines got blurred. Like what I just feel like it's just too much here, right? I need more answers in order to really delve into that.
Right.
But you guys, October is a month for domestic violence awareness, but also it is breast cancer awareness month. Hug a survivor, find a person who is in need of love, support, resiliency, right, to be built, and give them a listening ear, because it doesn't take anything from us, right? Go out and buy a breast cancer awareness t-shirt. Join the fight to navigate the very difficulty in mitigating breast cancer for so many women and men out there. Also, if you know a person who is currently in a violent situation and suffering from a toxic relationship, very much like this one, Gerald, your ass is toxic. Period. Period. You are toxic. Her friend, you're toxic. All of y'all just. So I'm just curious as to what that says about her. Selecting people who are going to submit to this level of betrayal and betray you. Mm. So thank you guys so much for coming through and checking out the main topic, which is R. Kelly and all of the craziness around that situation. I continue to ask you guys, what does R. Kelly being convicted of a crime associated with charges that he's already been brought up and acquitted of mean for our community? What does that mean for us, right? Why are we not having accountability conversations around the fact that we need to change certain things about the way that we normalize certain behaviors at certain ages? And which way do you think that the clock needs to move, or the continuum marker need to move? Do we need to say age of maturation needs to be bumped up? Or do we need to say it needs to be pushed back a bit? Or do we need to talk about what it looks like when certain behaviors are a norm process for some people, and that these same predatory behaviors need to be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, just like we prosecute other people in these particular cases when we think that it's statutory rape, because sometimes it's just not that. That's just not the case. Although these are some difficult truths that we need to sit with as a culture and a subculture, we still need to sit through these truths. I think that, I don't know, justice reformation is something that's necessary in this case. I feel like we need to be having more difficult conversation. I think we need to understand that that means that our young men who have been tried and found not guilty, or tried and acquitted of, drugs and drug related charges, I think that now this creates a loophole in our legal system that says that now we can go back and try them again, because we've seen that this sets a precedent. I just feel like there are just so many different things here that we are missing and we're not really paying attention to. But for those people who have survived sexual abuse, please understand that that's a very, very huge one to overcome. Get the help that you need when you find yourself in a very, very stressful space and triggered by conversations or acts of other people, colors, etc. Because it's an everyday journey. Overcoming is an everyday journey, and know that you have my support. But we do have to engage in these difficult conversations because it says something for our community, and I think that we have to be able to call that thing a thing and move into a place of advocacy to shift the laws to where it's no longer okay for the legal system to be bent when it's convenient for the judicial system and not our Black and brown people. I think that we saw that and more in the Gabby Petito case in the footage that I showed you of the second officer's camera. They literally, even from the first officer's camera, they literally decided to not uphold the law because she was a young white girl in distress. I think that we can clearly say if she was a young Black girl in distress and had put those same level of markings on her significant other, her ass would have been in jail. So we have to be able to call these things things and move into a place where we understand that what we're seeing is precedents before us that are really not precedents. These are things that have been going on forever, just like with the George Floyd situation. Okay. What we're seeing is injustices against our people. And as much as we want to advocate and jump behind and jump on the bandwagon, I just can't. Okay. So that is all that I have, you guys. I hope that you guys have an amazing rest of your night. Go forth, be great, and evoke positive energy into the atmosphere. And if you cannot place some positive energy in the atmosphere, do not infringe on somebody else's positive energy center. What did Miss Sandy say before we go? I saw you pop up comments. Oh, it did. She was too pretty to go to jail. So R. Kelly can bump and grind on Bubba now.
I guess.
R. Kelly about to become somebody Betty. Poor Kells. All right. So that is all that I have, you guys. Later days. Bye.
Who alive can't put me in a box. I redefine any definition you got. I am the tiger, I'm making steps to the top. The flames, I whip it up, you just gotta hand me the rock. Take a seat, you cannot stand it. All I know, the flow harder than a Scotch bunny. Don't try studying me, you cannot manage. This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon. This ain't what you want, bitch, I'm a fucking phenomenon.